This is East Idaho Newsmakers with Nate Eaton.
Welcome to East Idaho Newsmakers. This week you can see we have a furry friend in the studio with us, along with his owner, Kevin Meehan. Kevin lives in Jackson Hole, and he is visiting us here in Idaho Falls. Thanks for coming down, Kevin.
Thank you.
This is your dog, Isosceles, and you have quite a journey as to how you adopted Isosceles, and you have recently written a book, Isosceles' Day, right here. It's on sale, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, wherever you buy your books, you can probably find it. But let's start off with how this dog came into your life.
Sure. Basically, he's the third lab that I've had. I lost my second lab, and 3 weeks afterwards, I was on Adopt, look at a website, adoption for pets and so on and so forth, because I'm a firm believer in animal avocation and supporting animal rights and so on and so forth. And I was able to find him at an adoption center in Cody. And basically, as soon as I heard of his availability, I beelined it right to Riverton, met the adoption center, who drove down from Cody and met me in Riverton itself. And I literally had 3 minutes with them. And after 3 minutes, they left. They were in a hurry to get back to Cody. Put him in the back. He was very anxious, fidgety, and basically that was the start of the story. And I realized that he was abused, malnourished, so on and so forth, just by the visual content of how his hair was and his general behavior. So that's basically the beginning of it. And the story from there just built as far as making sure we reestablished his health and made sure we modified his behavior to make him relax, so he didn't have to worry about any abusive content that was happening to him previously.
And he's a very friendly dog. There's a bunch of people in this studio, and he has no problem being around people. He just is relaxed here on the floor. How were you able to discern that he had been abused?
Well, number one was behavior, fidgety, very nervous, a lot of anxiety, so on and so forth, as well as the visual aspect. He didn't have any hair on his tail. He didn't have any hair on his chest. He was gray in his muzzle, around his muzzle. And the behavior in general gave me a sense of it, as well as what was given to me, the information from the adoption center, that he was never allowed inside a house. He was kept in a backyard for all of his life, never allowed inside, a chained backyard.
Which isn't healthy for a dog.
Exactly, in the winter time, the cold extremes, so on and so forth. And so it was also verbal information that I received from the adoption center, as well as the visual content and the behavior really indicated that he had been abused.
Now, you have owned dogs before, and had they been in abusive situations?
No, both dogs previous to that I had as they were puppies, since they were puppies.
Okay. So what did you proceed to do once you took him home and he was skittish and malnourished? And I'm sure it was different training exercises for you.
Well, very good question. To give you a little history, I started and developed a pet food company, Mulligan Stew. And the premise was on the general nutrition and requirements for any mammal. And basically, from that starting point, I had the ability, looking at the baseline of saying, how are we going to build him physically, his health back, reestablish general health besides his emotional aspect. And from that starting point, I was able to change the diet. I didn't know, or I don't know what the diet was previous to that, but it wasn't obviously good.
Yeah.
And by reestablishing his health, the correct nutrient content, and I suppose the best way I can describe it is just to allow him as part of the family, because I still feel many people today, or many families, isolate their animals in a sense. If it's unconsciously, saying you're an animal, you're going to be there, I'm a human, I'm going to be here. What I did is I undertook the aspect of, you're okay, this is your house as well as mine. Let's take a ride, so on and so forth. Understanding that he's part of the family, literally. And I think that was a large step to how he was able to feel more comfortable. Less anxiety occurred, less panic attacks, and this is the result of what
And
you see.
You adopted him 3.5 years ago?
3.5 years ago, that's correct.
So now he's 7 years old.
Correct.
And how long from the time you got him until he would be considered normal, able to go out and function and not, be skittish or show signs of fear?
I would say it was probably about a month and a half.
Wow.
Due to the aspect of putting out that energy that you're okay. You're going to be safe. You're part of the family. You're welcome around the bed. Now, I know a lot of people respectfully don't allow their pets on couches or beds, but I felt that was a huge component on making him feel comfortable. Now, I'm a practitioner, integrated practitioner, so he is in my office as well as therapeutic, for therapeutic purposes, and it's wonderful. Patients of mine that come in that are nervous, that are worried about certain pathologies that they have, that are scared, obviously, he's a great comfort for them, just to be in the office itself.
So you mentioned what you do for your career. How did that career lead to this? I mean, I know they're not really connected, but one would think that writing a children's book is kind of out there.
That's a very good question. Basically, writing a lot of scientific monographs or journals and so on and so forth, which is what I generally do. I do a lot of research. I think fundamentally there's no division between creativity like this, artwork, and touching the lives of young people, kids, children, 3 to 5, 3 to 6 years old, as well as adults. So what led me to this was the diversity of increasing the aspect of how we look at health, because I feel to some degree this is a healthy aspect. It's a mental soothing prospect that I think is very healthy for people in general, besides our typical treatments if we're giving protocols, medical protocols or treatment protocols or anything like this. That's what led me to this book, is to diversify the aspect of health, not only for children, but for adults as well.
And it's called Isosceles Day. You not only wrote it, but you illustrated it.
That is correct.
So you're a pretty good artist.
Well, thank you very much.
These are beautiful pictures in here. What's the story about? What's the book about?
Well, that's the beauty of this, is I didn't want it to be a plot. Most books have plots. I just wanted it to be more or less a day of observation. My perspective was, why do we have to be led by the hand to take a reader to one place to another? And I wanted it more or less an opportunity to just sit back and watch what happens during this day, what we think or what we want to imagine would happen to our animals when we're not watching or we're not observing.
And so it's really a book, it sounds like, that you can use your imagination. You're not being spoon-fed the story. It's
correct.
Develop it in your mind.
Correct. And another aspect is I wanted the illustrations to convey the story without a lot of text muddling, so to speak, the aspect or the message of the illustration.
And they're fun pictures in here. A goose putting the hose into Isosceles' mouth on a hot day.
Which is perfect for a day like today.
Exactly, it has been very hot. Now, tell me about your background. Were you born and raised in Wyoming?
No, I was born in Ventura, California.
Okay.
Basically, I came from an abused household, family. We were abandoned basically when I was young. Lived in the streets, and basically from there, I probably, and I'll just be honest, it was a very rough living in the streets, so on and so forth. It was a very tough life, which I'm grateful for in many ways because it makes me appreciate what I have today. I then proceeded at about 23 to go back to school the right way. Go to school, junior college, pre-med. I'm an integrated practitioner. I have a license in acupuncture. I practice in Wyoming. And basically, that was in Portland, Oregon. And then I moved to Jackson about 30 years ago and started an integrative practice there. And that's basically the short, condensed version of.
And have you always been an animal guy, animal person?
Not, you know something? I always loved animals. But it was about 30 years ago that I really said, hey, listen, let me sit down and really appreciate what they can bring into my life as well as others that surround my life, basically, and my patients too. And once again, I want to restate that the therapeutic aspects of animals with patients and people that are either in pain or worried or frightened about what they have, if it's going to be cancer, if it's going to be an autoimmune disease. Very therapeutic. Animals, I can't say that enough. It's just really a comfort. So to answer your question, it was more or less a correlation with my practice beginning and ownership of dogs.
Well, there's a lot of hospitals, retirement homes, dementia facilities that bring in animals, just like Isosceles, just so that people can sit there and pet them.
Exactly. And they really mean a lot because it's attention, it's almost unbridled attention, so to speak. That's how I would define it.
What do you think about the state of medicine today? I mean, you hear about big pharma, you hear about addictive drugs, you hear about, I don't know, it seems like there's so many people that when they go to the doctor, they don't even want to take medications. It seems that more and more people are going toward the more wellness, holistic approach. Are you seeing that with your practice?
Definitely, more integrative healthcare. It's very important that we have allopathic medicine or Western medicine today. The medications can be life-saving, antibiotics and so on and so forth. But there's the desire to look for more, meaning that instead of jumping into prescription drugs, there are more people consciously saying, I want to exercise more options first and then use that as the last option. Because that option is always there for people. Surgeries or medications, so on and so forth. So what I'm seeing in my practice, and I think what we're seeing my colleagues as well around the country, more people looking for other options first before they jump into surgery. And then they can always use surgery as the end result, or the last measure if they have to.
Yeah. Do you foresee another book?
Yes. I've already been asked for a sequel.
Is it going to be about Isosceles?
It's going to be another day probably but we're already being asked to do another sequel through people that are buying it. Posters, people requested posters. And one of them, as you'll see, if I may show you, is Christmas. And we've been asked to do a Christmas card of this right here. I mean, simple and sweet.
Oh, that's great. Can we show that? You could really do 365 books,
Exactly.
One for every day of the year.
Exactly.
Do you have any other animals?
No, I do not.
Okay.
And I shouldn't say that I own him. He more or less owns me. You know how that goes, right?
Well, he's a big boy, but he's been very calm, and he is probably thirsty under these lights. Last question for you: why should people buy the book?
First of all, in today's world, I think I don't need to express it much. The amount of stress, the amount of travesty. It seems like today, and perhaps you might be seeing this as well, people are under more stress. If it's going to be financial burdens, if it's going to be social burdens, so on and so forth. The book is meant as a I'm not going to say escape, a vacation from what we're always dealing with things around the world that we see that are tragic. And it's more or less a vacation that parents can spend with their kids and just spend a day with Isosceles. Just observing look at a goose is feeding him water as an example. So that's why I feel it's a good reason. It's just a time to take pause and relax, because that is healthy. We've seen that clinically over and over again, that the emotional component is extremely healthy for our health, as well as the physical component. And that's what I wanted to do here. You
mentioned that you had an abusive upbringing. Did you have pets?
No, I didn't have a chance to.
Do you think that would have helped you?
I think so, actually. I was abused. I was raped when I was 11, 12. Living in the streets, you look for shelters, and people take advantage of you. But once again, I want to emphasize that in a way, I'm glad I went through that experience, because it makes me feel so fortunate that I'm in a position to help people as much as I can. There's something so gratifying about having a patient leave feeling better. It's payment that can't be expressed, in my opinion. So I wish I would have had animals at that time.
Yeah.
And unfortunately I didn't.
Well, if you're watching, you can grab your favorite animal, or if your make-believe animal. Isosceles Day is the name of the book. Kevin Meehan is the author. He is working and living in Jackson for the past 30 years. Thanks for coming in to talk with us here on East Idaho Newsmakers. Thank you, puppy. Good boy.
Well, thank you for having us.
Absolutely.
We're honored.
Thank you for watching. Have a good week.